baseball's best record. That honor now belongs to the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers in first place in the American League Central Division are 31-16. The Dodgers begin a 3-game series tonight at home against Arizona. The Angels are in Oakland tonight to start a 3-game series. Former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Santonio Holmes, MVP of the Super Bowl in 2009, has agreed to become wide receivers coach at HBCU Central State University. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. You ready?
Somebody make some noise in this joint.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates its 4th anniversary this year on Juneteenth.
Here we go again.
Hard to believe 4 years has gone by so fast.
Oh my God.
But here we are, still standing, still loving and serving our people as best we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
To celebrate our 4th anniversary, we have 4 big events, and you're invited to all of them.
She got a lot to say.
Let's do this.
Let's get it on.
On Wednesday, June 18th, we go live on C-SPAN for the 2nd consecutive year with our Climate Justice Plus Black Health Symposium. Tavis Smiley will moderate an all-star panel of thinkers and influencers as we continue our vitally important climate justice work.
Hey, Tavis Smiley, call the bomb.
On Thursday, June 19th, you're invited to join us as we celebrate Juneteenth and our 4th anniversary. There will be plenty of food, fun, great music, good vibes, and all of your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts will be there.
Yeah, man.
Flip the beat. On Saturday, June 21st, there are 2 big events you're invited to attend.
I can't wait to hear it.
This year, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its annual partnership with the Empowerment Congress for a community celebration and dialogue to educate, engage, and empower. This year's theme is Resilience in the Face of Chaos.
Can't wait to see what's up next.
Y'all ain't ready for this.
And new this year is our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium, moderated by Dominique DePrima, with a luncheon to follow. Dominique will be leading a dialogue with some of the most impactful Black women leaders in Los Angeles, and you're invited to join.
This is it.
All of these events are free, but seating is limited, so you must register in advance at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can find all the details you need about each event.
Check it out.
It's our 4th anniversary, and we would love to celebrate it with you.
I love you guys so much. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're KBLA Talk 1580.
The only black talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
Thank you for having our black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
We love you. Love you.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. America, God shed his grace on thee. An amazing revelation today. President Joe Biden and his family have announced that Joe Biden has prostate cancer of the most aggressive kind. Our families, our nation, offers its prayers and best wishes to the former president as he seeks to recover from this very aggressive form of cancer. And while we acknowledge with our thoughts and our prayers to the President of the United States, the former President of the United States. At the same time, as citizens, we have a right to look back upon recent history and handicap many of the issues that might have been, well, at the center of decisions he made in light of his diagnosis. An aggressive form of cancer, prostate. A person who has the best health care on planet Earth, 24 hours of care as President of the United States. When you see his motorcade traveling, there is an ambulance that follows the presidential motorcade. It has every conceivable type of blood that may be necessary if, in fact, the President of the United States needs a transfusion. They have medical teams from the Navy, from the Air Force, from the Marines that are with the President of the United States on a 24-hour basis, including extremely well-trained Secret Service agents to protect, resuscitate, revitalize the President of the United States in the event of grave bodily danger, injury, or concern. And yet, just a few short months after a presidential election, we, the people, are being notified that the president has an aggressive form of prostate cancer, something that we knew nothing about, something that was probably diagnosed some years ago. We don't know the extent to which, during his administration, it was kept secret. In fact, if it were getting worse during his presidency, we can imagine that he was taking some medications for dementia, but was he taking medicine and getting chemotherapeutic treatment at the same time? These are all decisions that went into whether or not Kamala Harris, one, should have been considered for the presidency of the United States by the cabinet some years ago, early in the administration or midway through the administration. The delay in the President of the United States leaving the campaign, the fight that Jonathan Allen and Miss Parnes wrote about in the book, The Fight. They were guests on our program. Jake Tapper's new book, Original Sin, talks about the bubble that the President of the United States was in and whether or not he could even hear the American people given his medical condition. These are issues that we are going to explore today with Algernon Penn. Al Penn is one of our political consultants who is a regular on our program. He manages congressional, state senatorial campaigns, congressional campaigns all across the United States. This is information that every Democrat running for office needed to know. When Kamala Harris was ultimately determined to be the next Democratic nominee, the Democratic Party needed to know. People running for office needed to know. And what if Kamala Harris was the 47th president of the United States when she debated Donald Trump and she whooped him good? What if there had been 2 debates or 3 debates after that initial victory by Kamala? What would that have done to presidential momentum? Could that have stopped the dismantling of the Education Department, the dismantling of the United States Agency for International Development? Could it have stopped DOGE from running through the Treasury and Social Security departments collecting our data? Could it have stopped the affront on the government itself with more than 150 executive orders? All of these political issues depend upon and hedge upon one major decision: transparency in the White House from the President of the United States to tell us the truth as to whether or not he was capable of a second term. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, we're going to talk about the president's health, and we are going to look very closely at some of the critical decisions that would have been made differently had the American people known. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580. When the flames subside, who ensures that the stories endure? At KBLA Talk 1580, we're committed to preserving the voices that shape our community. We know people have short memories, and as long as this Black Talk radio station is on the air, we will not let Altadena be forgotten. We are honored to announce that the Altadena Historical Society will officially archive our recent town hall alongside every episode of Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr. This is the show of record, the definitive source for tracking Altadena's roots, resilience, recovery, and reunion. These stories will now live on for students, scholars, researchers, and journalists seeking truth and legacy in the months and years to come. Because history isn't just made, it's honored, it's recorded, and it's passed forward. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Al Penn is the president of the Penn Consulting Group, a marketing, media, and public relations firm that provides strategic marketing, branding, business development, and communication resources to businesses, organizations, and political campaigns. Al Penn, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse. Glad to be here.
Al, you're also a prostate cancer survivor. At least you had a scare.
I had a scare earlier this year. My urologist was concerned about my PSA numbers, and my PSA numbers are my prostate readings to determine whether or not there's a problem, whether or not my prostate is swollen or becoming hard, and the numbers kept jumping back and forth. He recommended I do a biopsy, and as I get to be much older, I take my health very critically and very seriously, and I went to do that. And so taking a biopsy is basically inserting a needle into the prostate, and they take a set of core samples from the prostate. They will review it under a microscope and determine whether or not the core samples are either malignant, benign, or not similar to the other cells that are in the prostate. And thankfully, looking at my situation where I had a lesion, which raised a concern, they found no cancer. So I'm very, very grateful about that.
Al, given that the President of the United States has the best health care on earth, the most attention paid to him than any other person on earth, what are the prospects of a diagnosis of prostate cancer for the President of the United States and a biopsy was not taken?
The prognosis is really difficult.
Well, I mean, the chances. Let me be more specific. There's almost, in my mind, no chance that the President of the United States did not have an accurate diagnosis of his health condition when it was first diagnosed.
Well, I can't speculate, but I will say this. Joe Biden is 82 years of age. At some point, there had to be some warning signs that were done. He, as president, has an annual physical. They do a metabolic panel. They will determine what his A1C level might be. They might determine what his other levels might be in terms of his health. They certainly would have had a reading on his PSA. And it's kind of curious to me that some of these things did not trigger a warning. As they talk about his diagnosis, there's a scale called the Gleason scale. The Gleason scale is a scale to determine the likelihood of the seriousness of the cancer that you have and the prospects for recovery. There are only 10 levels of the Gleason scale. He's at 9, which means that he has one of the most aggressive forms of cancer. And considering his age, they don't say that recovery is not impossible, but they also didn't say it wasn't likely.
Given all that was at stake in last November's election, it just seems to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, given your political consultancy and the work that you've done across dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of campaigns, it just seems to me that this is information that the American people needed to know, with an octogenarian running for president of the United States who essentially has a diagnosis of an untreatable form of prostate cancer that would lead to that candidate not likely being able to complete a second term.
Transparency is what the high mark is, the high bar is, in terms of being able to tell the American people the truth. Somebody knew something, and somebody else made a decision to either suppress the information or not give it. It changes the landscape for everything that happened during this last election season. I go all the way back to 2016 when he defeated Donald Trump. One of the things that really kind of concerned me was Joe Biden's age. He was 77 at that time, and understanding that when he got through his first term, he was going to be 81. We all try to be respectful regarding our elders and elderly people, but we also have to be realistic about what happens when people start to age and severely age. My concern was, what was Joe Biden's health going to look like in 2020? Could it be older physically and mentally, where he might not be able to be up to the rigors of the job? Or could there be health conditions that could pop up that could manifest itself and cause a disruption in his presidency and the campaign in 2020? And to be very honest, we're still at this point right now because Donald Trump is 79. We got the same thing going forward. And so when Donald Trump had his annual physical about a month ago, they never released any results or talked about what his health condition is like. We know he's on a couple of medications, cholesterol medications, but other than that, there's no clarity in terms of information.
I want to go back to, we're going to have plenty of time to analyze President Trump's health, which from my perspective might be physical, but a significant part of it may be neurological as well. He seems to have some serious problems with empathy. But let me get back to Joe Biden for a moment, because on at least 2 different occasions, had he known, and had we known, and had the cabinet known, if they did not know, and members of his staff who may have known, his wife certainly knew, certainly members of his immediate family knew that the president had cancer. Now, it never made it outside the bubble, but the reality is, had that been brought up, given his age in his first term, there might have been a call for Kamala Harris to assume the presidency of the United States during his first term.
Yeah.
But certainly after the election last November, there were still 3 months sitting there where he wasn't essentially functioning as a president with all the cards on the deck. He just kind of waited until Donald Trump was sworn in. Those 3 months, Kamala Harris could have been the 47th president of the United States, the first African-American woman president of the United States. And yet he did not make the decision to step down for health reasons. So we have two factors coming together here: a cancer diagnosis and the obvious dementia that the American people saw. Transparency is at the center of this, isn't it, Mr. Penn?
Yes. When a person casts their vote, when a voter casts their vote, they're looking forward. They're not looking backwards, and they're not stuck in the present so much. The present factors into that, but they're looking forward in terms of what the country is going to bring itself to within that 4-year period. I think it's egregious to the point where the president and the president's people, those who knew, and I have to include his doctors. My question, in this case is, how much did the doctors really press President Biden about what his condition looked like and what it meant for his presidency and legacy and what it meant for the American people?
That's a mental question, right? I mean, what are you going to do in light of the fact that we have analyzed your blood, we've analyzed your tables, we've analyzed your stools, we've analyzed your urine, we've taken skin grafts from you because you're the president of the United States. We're doing a complete workup of who you are. And we're presenting that to you. And then you tell us, what, I'm going to hide behind HIPAA. I'm going to hide behind, I'm going to run to Air Force One and fall down the stairs. I'm going to fall off the stage. I need someone to hold my hand when I'm walking across stage. I turn to the right at North Carolina A&T and I start looking to shake people's hands who are not standing there. I mean, we saw it. We saw the debate. I'm not going to let anyone tell me that I did not see what I saw when he stumbled up onto that stage and Donald Trump really, there was no stark contrast that we expected between Biden and Trump. And I know I'm a little bit invested in this, right? I'm invested in this because of the 15th Amendment. I'm invested in this because of 1965 Voting Rights Act and the process that it took us to get the vote, the right to vote, the lives that were lost, the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the struggle for the right to vote. My grandmama voted, your grandmama voted. They all go to this place in a kind of spiritual, religious ritual because, like Raphael Warnock said, a vote is a kind of prayer that we cast for a future that we want to build and that we may not live to see.
Absolutely.
And we vote for someone who is not telling us the truth as to whether or not they will be here for the future. That hurts, Algernon.
Yeah, it does hurt because if Kamala Harris, if Vice President Harris, had the proper amount of time to wrap up, to really do a full-throated campaign, if Vice President Harris does assume the role of President of the United States, she's not just a candidate, she's the incumbent. And the table setting is totally different.
All that stuff at the convention goes away. All that stuff at the convention goes away.
All that stuff goes away, correct.
Who's going to be the vice president? All that Josh Shapiro, Whitmer, Gavin Newsom, let's have a primary, all that Pritzker stuff. It goes away if she's the president of the United States and we have a unified party in Chicago.
Absolutely. It goes away. And I dare to say the results more than likely would have been different. And that's the thing now. And so as we are in, 4 months into the first term of Donald Trump, and we're looking at all the dismantling of everything, and you can't help but look back at this and say, what if? It's hard to do. You don't like to do it, but it's a relevant question that you have to ask, and when you don't get the truth, these questions become very, very hot and omnipresent. And right now, we don't have a whole lot of answers in terms of what's going on.
And what I want our listeners to understand is we've done a lot of handicapping after the election, before Donald Trump, when Donald Trump won, and then before he was sworn, a lot of handicapping. We blamed young black men in the barbershop. We blamed black Republicans. We blamed black conservatives. We blamed disaffected women, women who we were told during the campaign after we spent $1 billion that your choice is at stake. You're going to lose the right to make decisions about your own body. And then white women overwhelmingly voted for Trump and against Kamala Harris, who was arguing their case, which means we wasted our money on them trying to get them to vote for us. Right. We were told it's about eggs. We were told it's about grits. We were told it's about all of that. But in the final analysis, the things that were out of our control, a decision that was made at the very top of this process to protect and shield the president of the United States from his health from the public, is at the core of why Kamala Harris was not president of the United States when she debated Donald Trump the first time, which could have possibly led to a second and third debate,
Correct.
which constitute real momentum going into November. Is that correct, Al?
Oh, that's absolutely correct and essential. The other thing that I think about is how President Biden was lauded for getting out of the race when he did. You know, they were basically congratulating him and saying that, you know, he's saving the party a whole lot of anxiety. But if he had gotten, the question is based upon when he had the diagnosis, when he knew, and when he made the decision to leave, is a big gap that meant an enormous amount of progress that could have been made during that election cycle. And so now that comes into question about, you know, whether or not he was such a benefactor to the party by withdrawing when he did. If he could have done it maybe 2 years earlier, how does that change the landscape? How does that change the planning? How does it change really everything? You know, you don't have the public fight by Democrats about Joe Biden's condition, his cognitive ability, and whether he's in or whether he's out. And, you know, the behind the scenes fight, you know, from the Obama faction and the Clinton faction about whether or not Joe should get out, and, you know, looking at that play out over about, you know, a couple of several weeks. The convention would have been a unified convention, and unified from every sense of the word. There wouldn't have been hurt feelings. There wouldn't have been anguish and anxiety about it. There would have been, you know, lockstep unity that they never really had during that 2-month campaign or a 3-month campaign that Vice President Harris had. And I tend to think, you know, when you look back at everything, this is something that's in the long list of mistakes. And I'm not just going to lay it on Joe Biden. I lay it on the party, because the party, the apparatus of the Democratic, of the DNC, somebody in the DNC knew and never pushed and raised the alarm bells about this, because they thought it was beneficial for Joe Biden to basically run out the clock and still be president. Just think of all the pressure that he had at the time he resigned. Well, not resigned, but withdrew from the campaign. What that would have looked like if he had never, ever withdrawn.
The book, Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again, by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson. It's coming out. It's heading to the bestsellers list. Already at the bestsellers list.
Yeah.
Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House, Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes. All of these books are available at Barnes & Noble, but they're certainly available at Amazon.com. This discussion, ladies and gentlemen, is not going anywhere. There is a problem within the Democratic Party. Too many people see themselves fighting for their own jobs and not fighting for our interests. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, Algernon Penn, we will continue the conversation.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. New York officials and civil rights leaders marked what would have been Malcolm X's 100th birthday. Reverend Al Sharpton spoke at his National Action Network, noting it comes days before the 5th anniversary of George Floyd's death.
It was Malcolm that globalized the struggle, took us all over the world, and made it more than just civil rights, which we needed.
Mayor Adams says the city where Malcolm X was killed in 1965 must do more to honor his legacy. Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass says recovery from the January wildfires has hit a major milestone, with 2,000 properties now cleared for rebuilding in the Palisades burn zone. And HBCU Morehouse College is honoring Dennis Hubert, a student killed in a 1930 lynching, by awarding him a posthumous degree at commencement. A jar of soil from the site of his murder now serves as a memorial. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A jersey worn by Michael Jordan when he played for the Chicago Bulls in the 1992-93 season sold for $2.6 million at an auction over the weekend. The interesting thing about this purchase is that Jordan played only 17 games in the jersey that season. The Dodgers are still in first place in the National League West after getting swept at home by the Angels over the weekend. The sweep by the Angels did knock the Dodgers out of the top spot for Major League Baseball's best record. That honor now belongs to the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers in first place in the American League Central Division are 31-16. The Dodgers begin a 3-game series tonight at home against Arizona. The Angels are in Oakland tonight to start a 3-game series. Former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Santonio Holmes, MVP of the Super Bowl in 2009, has agreed to become wide receivers coach at HBCU Central State University. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
During this time, it's important for everyone to know your rights. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments in the U.S. Constitution protects every one of us, regardless of immigration status. The 4th Amendment requires a judicial warrant to search your home. The 5th protects your right to remain silent, and the 6th gives you the right to an attorney. Just remember,
No warrant, no key. My privacy. You don't have to speak. No lawyer inside. Don't say a thing. Yeah, we all got rights. Hey, we all got rights.
I feel so alone.
I'm embarrassed to talk about it.
How can I help my kid if I can't help myself?
I can't remember when I wasn't stressed.
I don't like it inside.
When you feel overwhelmed by your thoughts and emotions, it's okay to get help. You are not alone. CalHope is here for you with free, safe, and confidential mental health resources for youth, young adults, families, and you. Find support now at calhope.org.
After nearly 20 years in Congress, he knows how to get at the issues that matter the most to you. Every day, he takes a deep dive into politics, social justice, and the stories that shape our community. This is where prominent people unpack perplexing problems. Unfiltered, unapologetic, unmissable. You're inside the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. You ready?
Somebody make some noise in this joint.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates its 4th anniversary this year on Juneteenth.
Here we go again.
Hard to believe 4 years has gone by so fast.
Oh my God.
But here we are, still standing, still loving and serving our people as best we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
To celebrate our 4th anniversary, we have 4 big events, and you're invited to all of them.
She got a lot to say. Let's do this.
Let's get it on.
On Wednesday, June 18th, we go live on C-SPAN for the second consecutive year with our Climate Justice Plus Black Health Symposium. Tavis Smiley will moderate an all-star panel of thinkers and influencers as we continue our vitally important climate justice work.
Hey, Tavis Smiley, talk about.
On Thursday, June 19th, you're invited to join us as we celebrate Juneteenth and our 4th anniversary. There'll be plenty of food, fun, great music, good vibes, and all of your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts will be there.
Yeah, man.
Flip the beat. On Saturday, June 21st, there are 2 big events you're invited to attend.
I can't wait to hear it.
This year, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its annual partnership with the Empowerment Congress for a community celebration and dialogue to educate, engage, and empower. This year's theme is resilience in the face of chaos.
Can't wait to see what's up next.
Y'all ain't ready for this.
And new this year is our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium, moderated by Dominique DePrima, with a luncheon to follow. Dominique will be leading a dialogue with some of the most impactful Black women leaders in Los Angeles, and you're invited to join.
This is it.
All of these events are free, but seating is limited, so you must register in advance at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can find all the details you need about each event.
Check it out.
It's our 4th anniversary, and we would love to celebrate it with you.
I love you guys so much. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're KBLA Talk 1580.
The only black talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
Thank you for having our black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA.
Love you. Love you.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Algernon Penn. He is the veteran of a half dozen presidential campaigns dating back to my father's campaigns in 1984 and 88. He's in the campaign of 92 with Bill Clinton, the campaign of 96, the campaign of 2000. Really too numerous to name. Really proud of Al Penn's very scientific work in this area. Al, when I look at the first 150 days of Donald Trump's campaign, of his presidency, there is a different energy. There's a Project 2025. There is an agenda that is moving forward, whether Donald Trump is aware of the agenda or not.
Correct.
I don't know what the counterbalanced agenda will be if Democrats win in 2028. I don't hear any of the prospective candidates proposing 150 constitutional executive orders to reestablish the Education Department, to reestablish the United States Agency for International Development, to collect all of our data back from Elon Musk and his Doge people. I don't see any of that. But it is now almost unimaginable, given Joe Biden's health decline, that we would have seen anything like this in the first 150 days of Joe Biden Part 2. We would not have seen it. In fact, on the news this week was the staff was discussing whether or not his second term would be in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Come on, Al. Come on,
read
Al.
that because what it says was that the focus was on the president's health and being reelected more so than having an actual agenda to present before the American people. One of the things now, as you kind of reshift the puzzle pieces and they now somehow miraculously fit, is when the vice president was being pressed on her agenda, being like Joe Biden, whether or not she was different or not. And as you can remember, she came out late with an agenda for Black men, some other things that she put on the table, which were good, but they should have been exercised and discussed long before late in the campaign. So the focus obviously was his health. And the question is, what are we going to do about the president? How are we going to get him through this? That obviously was the concern. But I think there's some other things at play here too that a lot of people don't discuss. And I'm going to lay it all bare because most of the time, the American people don't have a distinguishing ability between what is actually the cabinet of the White House, and then there is the campaign of the president. These are two separate entities. And so when you have a campaign, there are people who run the campaign, who execute the campaign. These are people who are getting paid. And if Joe Biden withdraws from the race, let's say 2 years earlier, guess what? There's no money in that pot for them. You know, the campaign that they were looking toward in 2024, which may have gotten cut in 2022, you know, that's something they were holding on to. And a lot of times when you have disasters like this in a campaign, the campaign folks are actually looking to find out, how can I extend this job, so to speak, so I don't lose my candy? And I think I had a lot to do with it, because when Joe got out of that race, Kamala Harris got her own campaign team. So that resonates to me from the top of the DNC all the way down to the Joe Biden campaign. There obviously were discussions that were going on there. And so I think the money is a question, because he was struggling also too in terms of raising money. He didn't have enough. He wasn't matching, you know, even his 2016 numbers that he actually was raising in terms of dollars. So you have to look at that in terms of how all of this affected it as one domino falling against another. But central to the whole thing was his health. Nobody wanted to be honest about it for the good of the American people. And I tend to think that there was selfishness and non-transparency that went back and forth from the White House to the campaign to the DNC that we are just now starting to find out about.
In the book Original Sin by Jake Tapper, in that book, Jake says that George Clooney, one of the most famous faces on planet Earth, went up to Joe Biden after having raised millions of dollars for President Biden, and Joe Biden did not know who George Clooney was.
Yeah,
President Obama stepped in on several occasions, the book says, to fill in for Joe and to give Joe the impression, hey, of course you know George. Of course you know he's an Oscar-winning actor and he's George Clooney. I mean, he's on the cover of every magazine in the nation, in the world. So there's the health issue. Then there is the disrespect issue. I want to hang around that for a second, Al, because in the book Fight, Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes argue and say directly that he referred to Kamala Harris as vice president as kiddo, as, hey, kid, listen, kid, listen. This is how we're going to do this, kid. Well, if you refer to someone as kid, you're not probably willing to give them a shot at the presidency. You're probably not willing to leave office and respect them to give them the presidency in the event of your own limited abilities and incapacity. One step further, it also said, and this is most disturbing to me, he said, I want no daylight between you and I, Kamala. And that's the conversation he had with Kamala before she went on to debate Donald Trump. She called Joe Biden and said, I would like some advice, Mr. President. I'm debating Donald Trump in 10 minutes. And the only advice he gave her was, I want no daylight between the things I stand for and the things you say tonight. No daylight. That means she was the first black woman vice president, but she was not the first black woman to be vice president. She was a black woman vice president, but she wasn't a black woman who give him some good advice like my mama.
Right.
Like my girlfriend, some good advice on what you need to be doing to resonate with people. Al?
Well, I think the damage with that, one, obviously, is the disrespect individually to the vice president, but also the damage is to the voters that would have supported Kamala Harris for her own independence and her own line of thinking and her own political agenda. The fact that she is being told that there can be no daylight is basically putting her in a no-win position to be Joe Biden Part 2 or Joe Biden 2.0. And that was not the idea, I don't believe, when she agreed to take over the campaign and run as president. And I think the mistake that Joe Biden had was to not allow her to do that. I think it's faulty to a point to assume that. If you go back to even let's go back to Vice President Humphrey after President Johnson withdrew from the race because of the Vietnam War. He suffered the same fate because he could see no distinction between himself and LBJ. These are two different individuals with two different ideologies, not saying that they're dissimilar, but they have to be specific to that individual. And Joe Biden saying that basically doomed Kamala Harris for a defeat in last November by doing that.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are talking with Algernon Penn, one of the nation's leading political consultants. When we come forward, we will continue our conversation, and hopefully we can find some hope out of a very, very difficult situation. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least like to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
During this time, it's important for everyone to know your rights. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments in the U.S. Constitution protects every one of us, regardless of immigration status. The 4th Amendment requires a judicial warrant to search your home. The 5th protects your right to remain silent, and the 6th gives you the right to an attorney. Just remember,
no warrant, no key, my privacy. You don't have to speak. No lawyer inside. Don't say a thing. Yeah, we all got rights.
Hey, we all got rights. The following is not a contest. Ad is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways. Airfare not included. See FVGradio.com for complete details. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get your complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. Proceeding is not sponsored by this station or its affiliates.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
New Always Pocket Flex Foam will change the way you think about pads. Get full-size protection in a surprisingly tiny pack that fits right in your purse or pocket. Perfect for life on the go. With up to 0 leaks, 0 feel, and 0 bunching, you'll forget you're even wearing a pad. And Always Pocket Flex Foam is designed to adapt to your body, so you can move freely and confidently throughout your day. Experience the future of period protection with new Always Pocket Flex Foam. Pick up your pack today.
Barbecue season is back. Hey, it's Ellen.
And this is Sarah Beth. And a little thing we love about the Chick-fil-A Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich is that zesty barbecue sauce. I love that it was a little sweet, a little tangy, and with the mac and cheese.
I feel like I tasted the brown sugar bacon first. It was the absolute best combination. Pro tip, 3 sandwiches are always better than 1.
Order the Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich and a Coca-Cola on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk
1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Algernon Penn, renowned political consultant, business advisor, strategic marketing, branding, business development, and communication resources person who is our very special guest today. Al, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
One of the consequences of losing that election has been Donald Trump upending civil rights laws in the nation. One of the consequences. He's gutted the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, is using civil rights laws as reverse discrimination, suggesting that, in fact, whites are being discriminated against under our civil rights laws, even though there is no history of whites being discriminated against, on the scale that has activated the Justice Department. Within minutes, and this is breaking news, the city of Chicago, the Department of Justice, has filed a complaint against the city of Chicago, alleging that its hiring practices violate the civil rights laws of the United States. I'm not clear yet as to whether or not it's a criminal investigation or if it's just a civil investigation. I'll pin your initial thoughts.
The Trump administration has had a bullseye on the city of Chicago since 2020. Donald Trump wants to use Chicago as an example. I don't know how the city of Chicago, their hiring practices violate federal law. That's a stretch for me, but I'm not really surprised. And this is another domino that's falling in terms of Black populations that live in urban centers. They're being punished because of Donald Trump's ideology. But it's something that the Trump administration is going to normalize at every corner that he could do that. And Chicago is going to be the litmus test for what he can do and what he can get away with. And certainly you look at places like Philadelphia and Detroit and other Black enclaves across the country, they're going to experience the same thing. But Chicago's going to be the poster child.
I'm really glad you said that because, as you know, we're broadcasting live in Los Angeles. Los Angeles, a Department of Justice civil rights lawsuit is coming your way for your city's hiring practices. Not since Tom Bradley and the history of African-American mayors that we have been able to elect in Los Angeles have we been accused of using civil rights laws in a way that only benefit us. And here comes the Trump administration. Prepare yourself, Los Angeles. Prepare yourself, Detroit. Prepare yourself, Philadelphia. Prepare yourself, New York. Prepare yourself, Selma, Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama. Prepare yourself, Detroit, Michigan. Prepare yourself for where there is a Black mayor, where laws to get us contracting in our cities and hiring African Americans in our cities on police departments, on fire departments, and in basic city services, the Department of Justice is coming. We watched Ras Baraka recently get arrested for just standing in front of a detention center in Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah.
The consequences of what? The scramble between Joe Biden and an inner circle of people to keep the Democratic nominee, who happened to be the sitting president of the United States, in play had ramifications on November of last year, and the consequences of those ramifications are playing out right now across the United States. Al?
The ramifications are going to be felt for years to come, unfortunately. As you look at majority Black cities or Black and brown cities now come to grips that even though they may be employees, they may lose their jobs because they may have been categorized as someone who is unworthy to have a job, because the Trump administration wants to create this false narrative that the city of Chicago violated federal law in hiring people. You got to understand that they've already had a first pass at this. And this is called the federal government by firing all these government employees. About maybe 40% of them were Black and brown. So we're seeing a second wave of this from the federal level now down to the municipal level. And certainly there's going to be an assault on blue states. As a matter of fact, that's all coming. This is the dismantling of the economic foundation the government has provided for people of color, brown people, Black people, women. All of this is going to be dismantled in a very systemic way that I guess a lot of people did not understand. And then the worst thing about this is that this is going to further alienate voters from the Democratic Party. Those who are more inclined to be in the middle, who could have made or instituted or forced a decision to say, we have to think about the good of the American people, but instead the party leadership, and even the White House themselves, Joe Biden themselves, took a very selfish stand not to look at what this is going to do to the future of the nation should he basically leave office early and the vice president not win. It's an awful, awful, chaotic mess.
Algernon, thank you for being our special guest today.
Thank you.
Please stay with us for just a few more moments. I want to offer a word of hope. Max Cleland, former United States Senator, Vietnam veteran who lost his legs in a battle in Vietnam, wrote a book. The title of that book, Strong in the Broken Places. I once broke my arm. And a few years ago, I went back and got an x-ray of that arm because I guess a little arthritis is now settling into it. But the doctor told me that I would never break my arm again in the same place because the bone was stronger in the broken places. Our nation is only going to be as strong as we are in our weakest places. That's where we're going to have to look for strength. To rebuild our country, to rebuild our faith in the Constitution, to rebuild our trust in government, to rebuild trust in our elected officials, we're going to have to go to the broken places and make them strong. Those without health care, those without housing, those who need the Constitution to free them, those who need the Constitution to sustain and develop their rights, to strengthen our way of life. We are only as strong as we are in our weakest places. And therefore, we're going to have to mend ourselves and strengthen and calcify our bones in the broken places. My very special guest has been Algernon Penn. Al, I'm so grateful that you were here today. Thank you for being on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you much.
I look forward to having you back in the not too distant future. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. We'll see you tomorrow.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.